He flew to fame on the wings of American Idol, selling over 6 million albums and becoming one of the most successful contestants ever. And he didn't even win his season. But with great fame came tabloid troubles, and the focus shifted from his talent to his private life. In the midst of it all, he balanced out his personal life by having a child and coming out publicly as gay. Now, with stints on Broadway, new TV projects, and recording and touring again, he's ready to fully enjoy his life and his successes. Hello, I'm Ernie Manouse. Coming up on InnerVIEWS, our conversation with best-selling recording artist Clay Aiken. How does having a child change your life?
I think it changes everything. I think, you have to think about I obviously used to only think about myself, and now I can't do that. I have to make sure that I'm well aware of how my actions affect not just myself, but my son, and even beyond that, I think a little bit of, I went and bought a clean diesel after I had a child because I thought I needed to protect the earth now all of a sudden. I didn't care about that before. It changes most of your decisions, in everything I do. And obviously I actually find myself being a little less selfish than I have been in the past because of it.
Did fame make you more selfish, do you think?
I think that there's a difference between selfishness or what some people might consider to be, I hate to use the word, I think if you are in this business and you are someone who is, I guess, in the public eye, if you demand anything or if you want things a certain way, you become a diva instead of just being someone. I'm picky. I'm very type A, so I like to have control of a lot of things, and I'm far more hands-on, I think, than most folks who do the same thing I do. So it's a fine line to walk to be able to say, well, I want things to be this way, or I really want things to be this way, and not come across as being demanding or selfish or diva-like. And it's tough because I think in most ways, in most businesses, if people are type A, they're just considered type A and micromanagers maybe even. But if you do it and you're doing my job, then automatically you've become some sort of a selfish person, which I don't think I am. I don't think it made me more selfish. I think as the years have progressed, I've understood a little bit more about what it is that I like, or if I'm putting together a show, I understand what works for me and what I've seen work in the past, and therefore I understand the business more, so I know how I want certain things to work around me. So I don't think it means that I don't think I'm any more selfish. I think I'm more picky about what works for me and what doesn't.
Do you think people's reaction to your desire to have things the way you want them are different because of the way you rose to fame? Had you come at it from a different way, had you come at it with just an album that had been released and people started to know you by your music, do you think the reaction to you in the industry would have been different?
I think since it was a quick rise to some extent, it took me a while to understand what I wanted. I think for the most part, towards the very beginning, I understood I don't know anything. And I was more than happy to let people just say, sing this, sing that. And I think that in part is why some of my first album, second album, some of the earlier projects that I did were not exactly me. And as I got more comfortable in doing what I would do, and more comfortable in recording or performing, I've gotten more comfortable in saying, well, this is what I'd like to do. I think that's why this particular album, this most recent project, was much more me, because I got to a place where I was comfortable saying, listen, this is what I want to do. I think people's reactions initially, if I were to say I want something, were probably what they would have been if I were in their shoes. Who are you? You don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. But I'd like to think, there are people around me who would probably disagree, but I'd like to think that, after doing what I've been doing for 7 years in different ways, that I've gained at least, I don't want to use the word respect, but I think I've gained at least the respect of the people who work around me enough to know that, I don't think I don't pretend I know things that I don't know. If I don't know something, I'm happy to say, listen, that's not my expertise. But in the areas that I feel like I've got a little bit better grasp on, I pretty good at saying, this I really want to do it this way. I defer to people who know better than me in places.
Okay, take me all the way back to the beginning. Singing for you, always a love?
Well, always something I did. My mom says that I was singing when I was 18 months old, which now that I have a child who's almost 2 and is barely talking, I don't believe that. I understand a little bit more, but she still holds fast to that story. I sang a lot, and I think my mom sang a lot, and I was raised mostly just by her. It was just she and I for a long time, and so I guess I learned to sing because she loved to do it, and there was always music playing in the house. A lot of songs that are on my latest album are songs that she had playing in the house. And so I don't know how you pick that up. I think my family's relatively musical. Biologically, I think it was there. And so I sang a lot. I sang just in the car for the most part. And then I think to some extent when you are a kid who at 4 years old will sing, people think you're great. Even because it's not necessarily about, there's really very few 4-year-olds who are great talents, but there are also very few 4-year-olds who will stand up and stand on my mom used to take me to Sears. She worked at Sears, and she used to put me up on the carpet samples, like in the carpet department, and I'd stand on the carpet samples and I'd sing for people at 4. And I think they just thought it was cute. So it wasn't that I was good or anything, it was just that I was willing to do it. And whether it is that I was willing to do it because I loved it or because people would pay me $1, I'm not sure. But I did it regardless, and it kind of moved from there. I started, since I liked doing it or because I was being bribed to do it, I did it in school, I did it at church, I did it, as I got into my teen years, I'd sing at a wedding here or there if someone asked me to do it. And it was always just a hobby. I never really thought I could do it for a living.
When did you realize you had a gift for singing, though?
I still am not sure. When did I realize I could get paid for it? After Idol. No, I saw a show at North Carolina Theater, which is in Raleigh. When I was in 8th grade, I saw a show called Big River, and they were doing a local professional production of it. And I remember watching that show and thinking, oh wow, people get paid to sing. This is incredible. And I remember long story, but I remember watching that show. The guy who played the lead in that show was a man named Marty Moran. And I kept that little program with me for years and years and years because I remember loving the show and thinking, wow, you can get paid to do this. You can make a career out of it. Fast forward 20 years, and I got called to do Spam-A-Lot on Broadway in New York. And they asked me to come see the show to see if I would be interested in doing it and see if I liked the part. And I show up to the show, and I open the playbill, and the part that they asked me to play was a part named Robin. And I opened the playbill, and the person who was playing Robin on Broadway that I would take the part over from was the same Marty Moran who I'd seen in Big River in 1995, 4, 3, whatever, something like that, which was extremely full circle to me, and I thought it was kind of interesting. But
did you talk to him? Did you?
Oh, well, yeah, we became friends because he was the person who was in it before I was in it, and so I got to know him. But it's pretty incredible how small the world is, I guess. Yeah. But I never really thought, growing up in Raleigh, with the exception of that one thing right there, that I could sing and make a career out of it. I always thought, I'll be a teacher, and I love doing that, and I will move on to I'll sing at a wedding here or there, or maybe occasionally there'll be something locally I can sing at, and I'll do it as a hobby. So I mean, it's a substantial difference, but it's a nice one because my hobby is my job.
Yeah. Tell me about the special ed.
You mean my special ed?
Yeah. Your love of it, I guess, is a better way to put it.
I ended up preparing to go to college for music, and then realized I didn't want to go to school for music because
Why?
Because I thought, it didn't matter if you have a degree. I mean, I don't have a degree in music, and it hasn't stopped me from making it a career. And if I did have a degree in music, it's still all subjective. People would have their opinion. It didn't matter whether you were educated in it or not. So really, a degree in music was going to allow me the opportunity to teach. So I took the year off, and I worked at YMCA for a year while I was figuring out what the heck I wanted to do with my life. And while I was doing that, I kind of found connection with kids with behavioral disabilities, and I really, really wanted to work with behaviorally disabled kids. And while I was planning on doing that, a principal at a local elementary school pulled me aside and said, listen, I know this is what you want to do. I've got a classroom where the teacher's going out on maternity leave and I need a substitute for a few months. Would you be willing to come in for 2 months while she's gone? And I said, okay, sure. And so I went in, and she didn't tell me that it was the class for kids with autism. And I showed up at the class for the kids with autism and scared the ever-loving out of me the first day.
Scarier to be in front of that class than in front of an audience?
I don't know. Nobody was throwing anything at me on TV. So maybe this classroom. I mean, I had always sung and always performed, but this was me. This in the classroom was me in a world that I was not familiar with. Yeah. But I fell in love with it. The teacher came back, but the assistant ended up leaving, and I stayed for another year while I was going to school, and ended up making that what I wanted to do. And so the special ed thing kind of happened by accident. And I fell in love with it, knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with kids with mental disabilities or with autism, communication disorders. And so I loved that. And then because of that passion, I was working with a child with a disability, and his mother convinced me to audition for Idol. She had heard me sing around the house just casually or whatnot. She was like, you need to try out for this show. And
True or false, though, you first wanted to go for Amazing Race?
No, I did. I loved Amazing Race. I couldn't do it now because it used to be much wimpier. Now they make people do stuff I couldn't pull off. But it used to be much easier, and I just wanted to travel. And so and that's really all it was.
Ways to travel
it's really all it was on Amazing Race at the time. Just can you get on this plane fast? And so but she nagged me essentially. She said, "You've got to audition for this show," and I was like, "I don't like competition. I'm not a big competitive person, and I don't really want to do it." And she kept nagging me, and there was an audition in Charlotte, and so I said, "You know what? Okay, I'll go to audition in Charlotte." When I went and I got cut, idiots, and so I went and I auditioned, and I got cut, and I said, "Well, that's ridiculous." I mean, I didn't think I was the world's best singer, but I knew I was. I hoped. I liked to believe that I was better than getting cut the first day. So I decided the next week I'd drive down to Atlanta and auditioned again in Atlanta, and I made it through then. And then, the show was the show, and I got cut again. Once I got on the show, I got cut one more time and had to go back for a wild card. And then I lasted all the way to the very end, and I got cut one more time.
What do you think that says about the whole process, that you were cut twice?
Then they're obviously stupid. No, I have no idea. I think, I was cut twice. I know I was cut twice by America and once by the judges. I don't know. I really haven't analyzed it that much, but I have no problems with it. Obviously, it makes you persevere a little bit more when you. I think being rejected makes someone want something even more, and something that I didn't really care for that much at the beginning. The fact that I got cut made me want it more, so I went to Atlanta, and then when I got cut on the wild card, I was still not completely passionate about it until I got cut again. And then I really wanted that wild card spot, and so I went back for it again. And then I loved the process of being on the show, but I still never considered my life as a singer until I got cut at the end and lost. And then I thought, this is it. I'm not losing anymore.
And what I think is funny, and people might not remember, that in the beginning, to win it was the prize. There was no second place. You didn't win. You changed all that.
I think that you're right. The prize has always been winning, but
now that's a very different thing.
Even for folks, when we were on the show, we were told, we all felt like if we could just make it to the TV show, if we could just make it to the live show, our lives will be set. And people still believed that, and maybe they still do. And then you make it to the top 12, and when you get cut, people are working hard to do it, and you can never stop working. And I think no matter whether you're the winner or the second place or the third place, I mean, there are people. Look at Chris Daughtry nowadays. Chris Daughtry came in 6th place, I think. Jennifer Hudson came in 6th place. She got an Academy Award on her mantle. You know, I mean, you can't stop working. It doesn't matter. There's no free ride anywhere. And there are people who have won Idol in years beyond mine who really haven't been able to parlay it into the same sorts of success that say Jennifer Hudson or Chris Daughtry or other people have been able to do. And I think it has a lot to do with the amount of work people are willing to put in. Or
when you didn't win. Now, we all know
keep
the
saying
story.
That as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, please. I mean, we know the story. You did quite well. When at the moment, though, that you didn't win it, did you think that was it? Did you realize you could do more?
No. We were in a different situation that particular year. I think everybody was learning, and they had made an announcement that night before they even that we would both be getting recording contracts, and so I was. And the prior year, Justin Guarini had come in second place, and he had gotten a record deal with RCA himself, and so I was hoping that 16 weeks out, although you're completely sequestered from the world and you don't know what people are thinking,
Right.
I was hoping 16 weeks out that I would hopefully have at least enough exposure to have tried something. I was by then not willing to stop working. So, but you can't predict anything, and I sure didn't predict what would happen after that last night. And I don't predict what will happen tomorrow still, because I have yet to get it right. Yet. So it's not very wise to assume you know what's going to happen.
I'm fascinated that you would say that you've yet to get it right.
No, I've been yet to get a prediction right. Like when I say
prediction.
When I say that I've, I assume that this is going to happen next, or I'm going to put this out and this is going to happen, or I feel confident about this, and then it doesn't work out, or I feel like this is not going to work, and then it surprises me and it does. So I find that it's best to roll with it and just be prepared for anything.
Is it strange to walk into that bubble, just Clay Aiken, and come out of it all so well known? Is that a bizarre experience?
I guess it's hard to answer now because, at some point there's a line somewhere, and I don't know where it was in this past 7 years, but there became a line somewhere where it stopped being as much of a thing and became more of a reality. 7 years ago, I remember laying in bed, or even 3 years after that, and laying in bed and thinking, oh my goodness, I'm in Los Angeles. I had barely left the state of North Carolina before Idol. I'm in Los Angeles, and I have an album out, and I just flew first class, like what? And it stopped being, and at some point it stopped being such a, and started being life. When people come up to me on the street now, it's something that's something that happens during the day. You go through this transition where at first it was very exciting, and then admittedly it got to be a little old, and I just wanted to live without people coming up and nagging, and there was definitely that period. And now I'm to a place where that's what happens. It doesn't bother me. Doesn't excite me necessarily. I'm happy to sign or take a picture or whatever, and then I go on with my day, and that's just what happens. And I think it's probably like that. I would assume it's like that for people with any job. When you first get a job, it's exciting, you got all the stuff, and then you're over it, and you don't want to do it anymore, and then you settle into a place where it's comfortable.
Did there come a point where Clay Aiken was no longer yours, where all of a sudden it belonged to everybody else?
I worry about that. I worry about that still. I mean, I think that unlike other people who go to work, you go to work and then you stop working and you go home, and you don't have to. You're off. Right. And I am aware of the fact that I don't get to be off. And I'm a kind of a hermit, so I stay at home a lot, and I don't do anything. I turn on, CNN or whatever, and I just watch the news, and I stay in my house. And people say, well, why don't you? Well, it's because even though I'm comfortable with it, when I go out to dinner, people watch. Or when I'm walking, I'll be somewhere completely benign. I was at the Apple store a few months ago, and was buying something, and I was in line. I had a friend with me, and I said, you know what? Watch. And I picked up my phone and I went on Twitter and I searched my name, and lo and behold, the person standing next to me in line had tweeted standing next to Clay Aiken at the Apple store, and I went, it's something that I'm aware of, and I'm aware of the fact that when I leave, I still am me. So I don't know if Clay Aiken has been lost to someone, but I still have to. I don't get to be off, and so I do enjoy the time when I'm just around friends or people who I know really well, and I can not care as much.
Does it surprise you, the tabloid interest in who you are? When all of that was going on, was that like, I'm just me?
Well, yeah, absolutely, because, I think to myself, look at all these people who are so much more famous than I am, bother them, and there are days where I think, this is what I'm known for. I'm known for being a tabloid, and I'll go out to L.A. now, and where I stay when I'm in L.A. is unfortunately close to an area that has become a paparazzi mecca. And so I forget, I will walk out the door, and I'll get back inside, and within 30 minutes, there's a picture of me walking down the street on some website, or it's been emailed to me by someone. And I am constantly amazed that people still care. And someone will say to me, well, you can't walk out of the house without doing your hair. And I think, why not? Everybody else does, and I just don't think about it.
So then with all of that going on, when it comes time to sit down and concentrate on the work on the music, how do you get yourself in the right place to work on that?
I don't know if I am either extremely good at it or extremely bad at it. and the reason I say that is I hear all these people talk about the process and the art form, and they sit down and they dig deep within themselves and find and I'm just like, well, these are some pretty songs, let's pick them, and so either it's just comes so naturally to me to pick songs, or I just don't think about it that much, and I don't know which is better. But we sat down and we picked songs that I thought were nice, and that were songs that I really wanted to sing, and songs that I felt connected to in some way, simply because they were beautiful melodies, and they were sung by some of the greatest singers of all time, and I wanted to be a part of that in some way. And I went into the garage at my house, and I sang them, and the echo sounded kind of nice, and I thought, well, that's what I want to do. So I always kind of chuckle at myself when people ask me about, how do you get yourself in the place to, I don't know, I went and sat down and listened to my iPod and picked some songs that I liked. So that's the only place I get into, and maybe that, I don't know if that cheapens me or just makes me brilliant.
Well, see, my neuroses would be that I would think, if I pick this song, for the next Lord knows how many years, I'm going to have to sing that song. People are going to expect it because it's on the album.
Precisely one of the things that went through my head, this album more than anyone. And I kind of have gotten to a place, and I'm happy with, where I'm working with people who I'm very comfortable with, and they have allowed me to do the stuff that I feel most comfortable with. And so I decided that I wanted to sing. I only wanted to record songs that I'd sing live. There are albums, I've done, 4 or 5, this 5th album, so I've done albums in the past where there are songs I've never sung again. There's a song on my first album, I've not sung it since the recording studio. Probably will never again. And then there are other songs.
They know all your fans are going to want to
hear
you sing that song.
They're well aware of which one it is, and they try. But I've never sung it. I just never felt comfortable with it necessarily, the way it was produced or anything. And there have been other songs on subsequent albums that I felt similar feelings about. None that I wouldn't do again, but some that just didn't work for me live. And so with this album and hopefully any subsequent albums from this point, I just want to sing stuff that I enjoy singing live. So
True
there's not a problem with that this time.
On this album, you went into the studio without the lyrics.
Yeah, I didn't go in. That was 2 times I've done that. I did that on my first Christmas album, and I did that this time. And I personally believe that I don't, that was probably because I knew them better and made me more comfortable with them. I did not go in with the lyrics. I knew all of these songs. I mean, I probably cheated on 1 or 2 of them, but I definitely didn't have the lyrics, need them at all. I knew all these songs, and I think that's why, because I felt comfortable with them, and hopefully that comfort, that level of comfort, translated onto the
recording,
whatever used to be tape.
Yeah.
Now it's onto the digital file.
The hard drive somewhere.
So, I definitely was more comfortable with these. And it's because, and it goes back to the fact that we chose songs that I want to sing live, songs that I enjoy doing. There's not, there are a few songs on this album, honestly, that I didn't really, or they're not on the album necessarily. They're songs that were recorded that I didn't really love recording. But I love doing them live. And there are songs that we listen to them, and I think we thought about, that doesn't really translate on audio file, right, the way it does live. And so they didn't make the final album, the main album. But some of them are on the PBS special, and I love doing them live, and I'll continue to love doing them live. But that's the goal for every song, for me at least, my goal from here on out.
So career-wise now, in some way I almost feel like you're at a rebirth period, that it's kind of like a fresh Clay Aiken coming out. We've gone through the American Idol era and the tabloid era and then even the Parenthood and all of that now there's somebody new that's being presented to us. Is that a wrong way to look at it?
Yes and no. I think that it is not someone new. I think it's the original me. in the sense that, for 6 years, like I said earlier, in the process, you have people who you're not as comfortable with being yourself or speaking up for yourself. And now I've gotten to a place where I'm comfortable. Everything's shed, and so I'm more comfortable with being myself. Don't think I'm bossy. Others may disagree, but I'm comfortable with saying what it is that I want and what it is that I want to do, and I'm comfortable with being myself. There's no pretense. I don't think there was too much pretense before, but there's definitely none anymore. I showed up today to the interview in my pajamas, and I walked right down the street in my Cinnamon Toast Crunch t-shirt, and I don't care. And so I'm just more comfortable with me, and I think that it's, instead of being a rebirth and being the new me, I think it's much closer to who I really am, and not a new person at all. It's me becoming. Somebody told me when they turned 30, that their life kind of came in. They got comfortable enough with themselves, and they really started being comfortable with living life the way they wanted to. And I always thought that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's not going to happen. Everybody says that. It's just stupid, and it did happen. I mean, I turned 30. I had a son. And a whole bunch of stuff changed, and now I'm in my 30s, and I feel like I'm comfortable with who I am, and I am me.
Well, we're comfortable with who you are too.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Clay Aiken.
To order a DVD of this or any episode of InnerVIEWS, please visit HoustonPBS.org.